Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, a dedication to William and William. One of the absolute best part of the bonsai community is just that how nice and supportive the bonsai community has been to me. All the people I have met, it's been fantastic and very, very generous. And people sharing ideas and making honest comments about trees without breaking people's hearts and making it, sound awful. We all have a lot of growing to do in our bonsai journey, but to get such support from everybody out there is so fantastic. And today's show is dedicated to William and William because the two Williams recently have come into my world due to bonsai. One re-entered and one brand new one. So the first William that I'll be talking about today is a wonderful man who I met about 4 years ago in my own backyard. We had one of our garden tours, and about 5 of us showed off our gardens and our trees, and we had people come on over. And then you ended the tour at one person's house to have a picnic, and we all talked bonsai. And William, the first one we're going to talk about, was at my yard looking at my trees. And 4 years later, he watched one of the YouTube videos that I put out on my Bougainvillea and said, I got to meet that guy again. And we've been connecting a couple of times in the last few months, and we got some fantastic things that we think could be happening in the future around bonsai and a few other things. We'll talk about that on future episodes. But he has done something that a lot of people have done this year, and they've entrusted their trees to me to care for over the winter months. So I have room in my plant room, and I have room in my cold frames, and I store trees for people. And William asked me if I would keep his trees this year. His last source wasn't available this year, and he connected with me, and now I have trees in the cold frame for him and trees here in my plant room. And I'm going to show you a couple of those trees next. Of the many trees that I got from William to take care of, we had a great conversation here just in the plant room the other day. We sat here for about an hour and soaked up the life in here, the new growth in the trees, his, mine. And we've talked about ownership of trees and the legacy of trees. And what do we do with our trees after we are gone? So we've had a couple of hefty conversations about that concept. And so he and I talked about his trees just the other day. And a couple of his trees that he gave me are the Bogan Via. And so we have a variegated Bogan Via here that's a real big, lush tree right now. Actually, not as lush as it was when I brought it over from his house, because we had a little bit of leaves that dried up and fall off in the transition between his place, my place, and the indoor plant room. And so you can see we have some dry leaves down here, and we've lost some foliage. But there's all kinds of new growth and new buds everywhere, so we're going to go ahead and tackle some of the trees. I don't know if I'm going to work on this one today. This is the biggest one, the tallest one of the 4 that he has in my possession right now. And one of the things that we talked about is, the vision for the tree and what we'd like to see. And he has entrusted me to go ahead and work on some of his trees, and I am going to share some of that process with all of you. This is a pretty new tree for me, the Bogan Via. I've done a lot of research with Mr. Nigel Saunders at the Bonsai Zone and watched him prune his trees this time of year in the summertime, repotting his trees sometimes in the plant room in the wintertime, and of course in the summertime too when it's warm, or spring pre-growth for the Bogan Via rather. And so I'm going to take a look at a couple of the Bogan Vias today, and we're going to look at a couple of them, and then I'm going to probably just trim up one of them tonight, and then I have William number 2 to talk about in a little bit. So this one I just wanted to show right away because it is the biggest tree. We have a little bit of a sparse background, so we'll have to see if we cut this back, if we can get some trees, buds to bud out here. We have a branch here that died off in the past, I'm assuming, and a cut job right there that's slowly healing. We have a branch that's pretty low down here that we probably will get rid of at some point because this is starting to thicken up a little bit here. And so this tree is just kind of a big sprawling tree. And This is a great tree to showcase only because I want to talk to people a little bit about the challenge with bonsai for many of us, and that is chopping trees back. Of course, making sure that we do it when the tree is healthy, making sure we do it when we have really good recovery situations. Again, I've had people message me on the YouTube stuff and say, you know, hey, is this a good time of year to be doing that to that tree? And sometimes, quite frankly, not the best time of year, no. But then someone else responded to that very question and said, well, when you have a nice cozy plant room with high humidity and warmth and a lot of artificial light, you can do some great work with the trees and get ahead of it. If you have so many trees to work on, it's a nice time to do that. So again, you want to be on a healthy tree, working on a healthy tree almost always, unless it's a sick tree where you're trying to recoup. And so we can go ahead and work on some of the trees this time of year for sure. I might work on this tree in a couple of weeks. We're going to let it see what it's pushing out, but it's pushing out growth. I got some new growth up here. I've got some new buds there, and there. We've got new buds on this, so it is ready to push out some growth in the plant room. So I'll be able to work on this in the next couple of weeks. I don't think with any ill effects. And so this is a tree, again, that's big, and we want to make it more compact. Now it's a super tall tree, and if we wanted a really big, massive Bougainvillea, we could probably keep this height and just bring back the branches and work for more ramification. But if we want a primary branch start a little bit lower on the tree for a smaller tree, say this is the canopy at the end of its life, we would want more branching out here. Preferably on this right over here, because it's the outside of a curve, get a branch here, branch there, and then we could cut all this back. Unless we want a bigger tree. Now this is the biggest, tallest of the bunch, so right now I'm going to just trim it back, or I'm going to trim it back when I work on it, but I'm not going to do that right now today. Just wanted to show you tree number 1. So this right here is Bogan Via number 1. It's got this branch here kind of growing back on itself right here. You see that? We would rather have this branch coming out this way for some more depth, huh? And so that's where this branch right here could do that. If we cut this back right here and let this branch right here continue working that way, that'd be great. And this one's kind of coming this way. This is kind of coming sideways. Look at that. It's going back over here. Now this may have been because the light was coming in over there and all these leaves and all the branches are leaning towards the light. Remember to turn your trees around outside on the benches. Let the sun get this side too, so these branches can maybe lean a little bit more here and reach for the sun and help with your directional growing and directional pruning and make sure that that works. This is a nice branch right here though, so if we cut this back, this one right here can continue to grow out here. But again, a super big tree that's pretty big and open and was twice as much foliage this summer when I saw it over at William's house. But we're going to put this back on the bench for now and pull out one of the other ones for you to take a look at. Here we have Bougainvillea number 2. And again, I just counted them. I do have 5 of these guys in the plant room, and we're going to slowly clean these up for William. And we're going to bring him back out to his little oasis on his porch area in the springtime when he's back, ready to work on his trees. And we'll work on some trees together next summer and spring. But again, he's entrusted me to do some work, given me full reign to do what I see fit for the trees. Now, depending upon how many trees you have, you might make different decisions on what you're going to do. And this guy right here has kind of a funky multi-trunk thing going on here. And sometimes people will put trunks together and try to fuse them together for a multi-trunk. And this one has a secondary trunk going right here. This is the main trunk. And you see this kind of bizarre branch going right here. That's this one back here, and it's actually grafted together. Oops, some of my lights are turning off. And so these two here have grafted together as one. Kind of a unique situation. You know, it almost looks like there was a graft right here, or there looks like there's wire marks. I'm not sure. I'd have to consult with William on this one. Not sure. These are all alive, and so it looks like it was trying to be some kind of a multi-trunk species. But again, it's all coming together here. So that might have been on purpose. But now we have a couple of branches in here that are still starting to go a little kittywampus here, and so we're just going to clean this up today and get out some of those really kind of more obvious branches to get rid of. And so let's start with this one right here. So this trunk, whether we keep it or not, has this branch right here going right inside towards this other trunk. We can take that out and we just clean that up right there. And it's got a really long branch back here with a short old stub right here. We'll clean that up. We'll clean that up. And then this is a little bit weaker and this is a little bit stronger. We're going to cut that back right there. And we're going to see if we're even going to keep this bifurcation on this branch right here. And so the other thing I have to make a quick decision on is this guy right here, which is the main trunk of this tree, if we don't include that one. And it's grafted together there, or it's fused together right there. So do we keep it? So in order to think about keeping it, do we look at the tree from this side? If we look at the tree from this side, they're separated down below, right here. They're separated down here. And then they graft together right there or fuse together right there. So pulling it apart will leave a really big scar. So for this iteration, I'm not going to mess with that. And we're going to see what's going to happen in the long run. I'm going to clean up this branch right here. Clean up this branch right here. Maybe we'll get some more new fresh buds in those locations. Okay. So I'm not sure what the future of this tree is going to be with this graft right here. But what we can do is we can give it a little bit shorter haircut right here. We're going to cut this extra part right here off, right there. And then that just has the new growth right there if we keep it long term. Let's go ahead and cut this back right here because that's feeding off this same split here. We have another little tiny dead spot here, bud, an internal leaf right there. So we've got this split right now, right there. And again, it's grafted or fused on right here. I don't know if that was intentional or not. I'll have to double check with William on there. But then with that on there, we have this big branch back here that's crossing all of that stuff. So those two crossing branches are a pretty big no-no in bonsai. And the back of this branch, by the way, over here kind of crosses back over here too. We'd want this to grow out this way more. And so this one's got a really funky growth pattern to it. And I think we're going to experiment with this one and just cut it on back right here. We're going to cut that one off and hope we get some back budding back in here. We've got a node right there, we've got a node right there, and a node right there. We might get some, like there's even a piece of growth right there. That right there is a young, no, that's an old one. Nope, not viable, I don't believe. We can still hope that something could grow right there though. So we'll see. This one's got an inside branch, we're gonna cut that back as well. And now we're just left with this stick over on this side. But we're hoping for the back budding on there. By cutting that back, we're gonna hope to get a little back bud and start this branch fresh. And if it doesn't take, we can surgically remove some of these branches if this multi-trunk design doesn't work long term. But what we have to decide then is what we're going to do with this back branch right here as it crosses this. Because if we get rid of this right here someday, that back branch isn't all that bad. But what we do have is this branch right in the front of us here staring us in the face. So let's spin the tree around and see if we can see a different possible front. So that's kind of one of the proposed fronts. This is kind of leaning a lot this way, so I don't know if this was intended to be a front, but that's where the two trunks crisscross in a little bit less appealing way. And so this would be more of the front. If we put it this way, we can see the curve of the tree, and we've got this back trunk back here. And we see kind of this split here in multiple ways, and it doesn't cross quite as much. So that's a possibility, although maybe not as much as we'd like. And if we got rid of this front trunk right here, we would have this big thick as the main tree, and you can see the three different areas of that tree, but they're all very close together. So this is a super challenging tree to decide what we're going to do with it. It's almost because it's infused here, almost looks like it's kind of an aerial root there in a way. We'll see if that branch grows. We are going to cut this back right here so it doesn't go in on the tree. So we'll cut that branch off. And now again, we have this frontal growth. We're going to cut all this back here and leave this bud right there in case we want to keep that. But again, these are growing right at us. And one of the things about bonsai is we don't like branches typically eye poking us. And so we can cut these back and then maybe steer them in a different direction. Right now, if I took this one off, which I will, now we have the branch coming up here, curving over this way and curving over back that way. Kind of a fun branch. Now it's still in the front of the tree, and we might not like it long term, but we got rid of a lot of the noise down there. Now this one has an old cut point right here, and this one we're going to just cut back. We're just going to cut back to this new growth right here, or to this back growth right here, relatively new leaves right there. So we have this back one right here that will grow. We'll see what that does. Old dead piece right there. But we've got this branch right here, and it's kind of splitting off with this guy right here. So this splits way back here, which is super nice. And actually, if I go ahead and cut this off right here, we've got these two branches that are equal in size. We'll pick the better branch after we see the growth pattern of this tree. Then we've got this part of the branch, which is this main tree, and I love the shape of this main tree, which makes me want to keep this branch right here and get rid of that one. And I think I'm going to get rid of that right there and just keep this, because my gut is telling me that I'm going to get rid of this back tree here. It's just not lucrative aesthetically for us, and so I think the structure of this tree is all back here and it looks really, really fun, and we'll see what other kind of back budding we get. But I think we're going to end up probably taking this entire secondary tree here and just have this twin trunk, or we might even get rid of that too and just have this nice curved tree here. We've got some nice branches out here. We're just going to go ahead and bring this back a little bit. We're making things a little bit more compact, less coarse up at the top growth, leaving some of the finer growth so it goes from thick to thinner a little bit. And then we have this branch right here in the back. You see how it crosses all the way over? We're going to go ahead and get rid of that. We don't need that unless it was going to be a windswept tree, and I don't know if this is setting up to be a windswept tree, just more of kind of a, it just sprawls out in a real fun way. This just takes away from it. It just takes away from it. And I think we're going to make that decision right now. We are going to cut that off. We're going to cut that back right there. Those two didn't mesh together as nicely as perhaps wished and desired, and it pulls away from the tree so much that that design right there is so much nicer. And it makes this tree branch okay, but this still one kind of gets in the way of this view, but not horribly as when it was out here in front of us. So if this can continue to grow this way, and we have some nice texture to this branch, let's even cut it a little bit shorter so it's not as dominant out there. And we'll just see what happens with this and all this new growth in here if we get some back budding from all this work on the tree. So the other thing to consider before we call this one done is this part of the branch back here. So this branch goes to the left, it goes straight for a while, and this one comes up to the right. I like how this goes up, and as you see from the back, you see we have our 1, 2, 3. We are going to go down to 2 on that one as well. And now we've made this tree a whole lot more compact, and it's ready to push out growth in the plant room with its new environment, and we're going to see where it's going to go. I have a little stub back here too from an old cut. So it looks like the growth pattern of this particular Bougainvillea has a lot of multi-branches that grow really close together, so we have to be careful and cut those out at the right time, and then just focus on the one branch. There's natural movement to this. I don't know if there's been any wire on this tree ever before. Again, a question for William the next time I speak with him. But there we go. We have one Bougainvillea, or Bogan Via, kind of ready to go. It's kind of slanting this way, and this part of the tree looks really fun. Kind of some fun movement on this tree. We can let this grow out and then cut it back and let this trunk really thicken up, and I think we'll have to make some adjustment on these branches here. I just don't see the multi-trunk taken off. So let me go ahead and clean this up, and we'll see just through the growing season here in the plant room and go from there. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit more back here. There we go. That'll blend in a little bit better. And then we'll just see if this takes off over here. And if they did fuse into one tree eventually over time, these could both fuse down here, and that could be kind of cool. It could work out. I'm not saying it's the end of the rope for that. This is a very straight stick here that's kind of a weird angle to this beautiful curve, so it kind of takes away from that. So I'm tempted to take that off right away too, and I think I will. That will detract from this tree. And so now it shows a decent flare at the bottom right there. It shows that as a flare right here, which is kind of nice. And we have this tree growing up this way, and we've got this little movement here. So now it's turned into this really nice little tree, and we're going to see how it does in the plant room and move on from here. And this is the other one, which also has a decent, little bit of a flare down here. Now we got some dried out roots, but we got a good, this will be good to repot next spring. And we're going to see what this root system looks like and see if we can make that root system really go 360 around. But it's got some really good 360 movement right now already with the roots. We got a big root coming on here below my chopstick. This one's an old kind of dead one, so we're just going to peel that off. There we go. That was sticking straight up anyway, kind of in a weird spot from out here. But we have a really nice flared root right here with a smaller section right there. There's a little bit of a root down here. There's one back even further around the corner, and there's a couple of new young roots right there. This has a nice potential to be a really nice nabari in a couple of years. So we're going to continue to trim it back and then let it grow. Trim it back, let it grow, so we can get that girth of the tree. Now this has one of those really wide canopies, and I kind of like that about this tree. So we're going to shorten it up. We're not going to shorten it up tremendously, I don't think, at least at my first thought. I kind of like this look. It is out of scale, though, to have it this monstrously big. So we are going to cut back and try to change some of the direction of this tree. So that one we're going to get a little bit shorter. This one's super long here. We're going to get that a little bit shorter now. And then we're going to get this one back here a little bit shorter. And this one might come off. We'll see. That one's grown in a precarious place down there with no leaves until about here. We'll have to kind of see. And this back branch is growing back up at us. Let's cut that section off because it's growing back at us. And so I definitely feel this is the front with the curve this way. All right. So again, we have a branch that's kind of facing towards us, which is not ideal. So we can trim that up a little bit smaller by maybe getting this section off right there. This one I'm going to see if we have a branch that's died or if it's still alive. Looks a little weak. We're going to cut that off. I think that's died back. And this back here has plenty of life here, but you see where this branch is growing way up and around? We're going to cut that off right here so it continues to maybe grow up as a leader potentially. This branch is dead, so we're going to cut that off. This little nub here is dead, and we're going to cut that off. And this is just all the same thickness from here to these leaves. What we're going to do is cut it off right by the leaves. We have death on this side and just one little bud that was still alive there. So we cut this whole thing off. And now we have this leaf here, and we still got this kind of funky curve here. But we're going to, again, see how this tree responds in the plant room to some back budding, and we'll kind of go from there. These two branches cross. You see how long this one is? We're going to go ahead and get rid of that branch right there. And this one's kind of going back towards this part of the trunk, which is a little odd, but we're going to leave it for the moment. And I'm actually going to cut this one off right here so we can leave it for back here for this growth now. Cut off some more dead stuff. And we have some branches here. Now again, this is a little bit long. We're going to cut that off. We're going to cut that off. Here's some old dead stuff. This tree just needed a little bit of cleanup. There's been a lot of new growth and shifted growth. Cut this back one a little bit shorter. See, we got all this underbrush here that's no longer viable. And so it's just adding to a tree that looks like it just needs a little TLC, which is what we're giving it today. A little TLC to clean up all these spots. Now again, I have a couple of leaves down there. We're going to make it even shorter and keep those right there. Now this one's way too long, and this is going to make this part of the tree more bulgy, so we're going to cut this one right off. We don't need that one. Because we have the branch down here, which has two fun branches. I wish this one was a little bit lower, but it's got two decent branches there. We'll just cut this one shorter. We're going to cut off this great big leaf right there, going both directions for right now. We'll get some smaller leaves growing indoors. Or, well, there'll be bigger leaves actually indoors. Summertime, they're going to be smaller. But I just want to get rid of that huge leaf there. There we go. So we have a tree that we've pushed way back. So we're going to see what back buds back in here. Again, this is a tree that's lending itself to a lot of really fun movement. Look at all this movement naturally in this tree. We have three going out of the same spot here, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that one off. Cut this one a little bit shorter. Cut this tip off. Yeah, some really fun, just natural undulation in this tree. Both of these trees today look very, very nice. That's a dead branch. We're going to cut that off. We got this branch growing back there. That could change the whole direction of the tree if we cut all of this off and that's the new part of the tree. Or this is going to become the tree. But we have some really fun branches right here. really nice height off the ground. If we let those run out again here in the plant room, and then cut them back for the spring and let them run out again all summer, it's going to thicken up this trunk real nice. And we've got some branching in here, a couple of spots where these little leaves are trying to grow, so new growth here. We'll just leave them there and see if we can get some new possible branches from this branch here, and then we'll get some good taper. This one gets a little long and odd, so we're gonna cut that one off. And there we go. We just cut up another tree. Drastic cuts, it's kind of a lot of cutting, but it's gonna really help this tree to shoot out some back buds and to just get a nice healthy flush of growth, and we've kept it nice and compact. And it's got some really nice potential with some branches down the road. Again, I see this big curvy one is going away right to here. I could even cut that off today, but I'm gonna wait. I don't know when it was repotted last. It's got plenty of health right now. We cut off all the dead stuff, cut back some live stuff, and I think we're ready to just see what this will do in the plant room. So we'll leave that at there. So my thanks to William for giving me the green light to take care of his trees that he, in the end, might consider, or is considering, or is comfortable with sharing with me for the rest of the time that we work together. My thanks once again to William, who has been gracious enough to spend time with me talking bonsai. I'm taking care of his plants right now, and we're going to kind of collaborate together for the rest of the lives of these trees and kind of go from there and see where it takes us on our journey of bonsai friendship. So thank you to William, and we'll work on some more of those trees, the other 3 here in the coming days or week or so. And the other William I just met today. So another member of the Minnesota Bonsai Society is William number 2, and William put a post out on our Facebook group session that said, hey, does anybody want any Sweet Acacia seedlings? And so I said, sure, I'll take one or some, and no one else spoke up, so he gave me all 3. So while he was in Florida, I believe it was Florida in the last year, kind of like when I go in my backyard all summer long and all the maples fall off the tree, he picked up some seedlings from the Sweet Acacia trees there in Florida. So the leaves are all closed up right now. They're sitting in some paper towels here. He's got them all nice and roped off here. So what a great collection of trees. So very young, all the potential of being a really fantastic tree. There's thorns all over the tree here, so you have to be super careful. Now they aren't that stiff right now this young, but we have the Sweet Acacia trees, and we need to get these into some pots. Typically when I have young seedlings, I try to put them in a little bit bigger container so they have more room to grow, but not too big. And I often will put a whole bunch of seedlings into one, so not just 3 separate pots. And so I think I'm going to do that with the acacia trees. The Sweet Acacias, I've got a nice blue pot here that's your run-of-the-mill nursery find where you spend 12, 15, 18 bucks. It's got the tray built in. You can see it's got a little bit of that calcium deposit down there. But we're just going to go ahead and put the 3 trees right in here and have a forest of 3, if you will. Just so I have a place where they're all growing, and we'll keep close eye on them. And then we will let them grow for an entire year or 2 or 3 in this pot before we see what we're going to do with these trees. So I have some more moist soil here, my small size Akadama and pumice. For those of you who ask about my soil mixture, I've usually used Akadama, I've used pumice, and I've used lava rock in my mix, usually a third, and a third. But of late, there's been a lot of talk about going to just pumice and Akadama. And of course, some people, the professionals out there and people who have got some really, really nice trees, they sometimes will put 100% Akadama, which for most of us can get a little bit expensive. And I like the properties of the Akadama and pumice. I like how they work together. They're very easy soil bases to work with. I like the look of it. Everything just really speaks nicely about that combination. It's kind of that white and brown tan color. And so it's been a really good medium this year. That's what I've gone to almost exclusively now, about 50% Akadama and 50% pumice. I just poked myself with one of those little pokers. That is a little bit more firm and stiff than I thought. All right, we have nice root on this guy right here. These guys are, oh, look at this one. Look at all the roots on that one, y'all. That's fantastic. So this one has so many feeder roots on this one in a medium level that I'm going to cut the tap root right there. There we go. That taproot is gone. I'm going to leave the rest for right now. This one right here has a really big taproot, and look at all the small roots right there too. We're going to cut that one right there. We'll keep these really moist in the plant room. They're going to keep growing and do wonderful things. And then this one's got a pretty long taproot with fine roots along the way. We'll cut this one a little bit longer as far as what we keep. We got all the fine feeder roots up here and down there. We'll see what happens when we replant that in a couple years. We will take care of that. So this is the big, beautiful tree. We'll put that as our front and center tree. It's got the big root system. And I think it's just going to lay down really nice, just right there in front. I'll go ahead and put that right there. Tree number 1. Ouch, I just poked myself on the thorns again. Woo! And this one, even though it's taller, is going to go back here. There we go. We'll get that one kind of curving out that way. I'll maybe bring this a little bit more in the front. Not that it matters. This is just so these grow really nice over the next couple of years in some decent soil. This one has a bit of a twin trunk action going up higher. See, it splits really, really young right there. So we'll see if that growth can happen on the roots right there. Here we go. We'll get some more soil in here. So again, really nice to work with wet soil, because when you work with the wet soil, it holds the trees in really good from the get-go. Then, of course, you can tamp it in with your chopstick and move things around a little bit. And there's just not a whole lot to do with this repot other than getting it in some soil. And so I knew this would not be a time-consuming one, but just one to get the trees ready to go. So super excited about this. So I saw some acacia trees on my trip to the Grand Canyon. It's always bizarre when you walk in the Grand Canyon and it's so hot down there and you're seeing all the desolation and some of the spots where it's just so hot and the rock and sand and cactuses. And then you'll see a forest of trees down in the lowlands where there's some shade at some parts of the morning and evening. And it just, you get some trees that grow there, and it's fun, fantastic to see a miniature forest there in the desert. So here we go. We have some small, fine soil with these really itty-bitty seedlings that William number 2 was so gracious to let me come on by his place and pick them up after work today. So now we have them in a pot. We're in my humid plant room, and we're going to keep it all really nice and warm. And I'm not going to cut anything off these guys. We're just going to let them go. And again, this is really good moist soil already. But before I leave for this evening and I'm done with all of this, I will go ahead and give it a little extra moisture, so those things are certainly loving life. So how cool is that? My first acacia trees. I'm really excited to see where these are going to go. And how fast they'll grow as we kick them off in the plant room here in the fall, late fall of 2023. A new species in the plant room. Can't tell you how excited I am for this. Acacia trees. So we're going to let these settle in their new home. We did some work on the Bogan Vias today, 2 of 5 from William number 1. So thanks William number 1, thanks William number 2. I appreciate the sharing of trees and the sharing of wealth and knowledge from all these people, the wealth of knowledge from everybody who does bonsai, from people out in the YouTube world to people in the Minnesota Bonsai Society, and to William and William who continue to support me on my journey with bonsai. I do think it's a journey, and I learn every step of the way, and I hope you learn a few things along the way as well. So we're going to wrap it up for today. Take care of you. Take care of your bonsai, and we're going to catch you soon on the next one.